Los bienes raíces siguen siendo el activo más valorado en todo el mundo, por encima de las acciones o de los bonos, y ni la comparemos o no hablemos de la criptomoneda. Como bien nos dice nuestro querido Craig Studnicky, los bienes raíces siguen siendo el activo más valorado en el mundo. ¿Por qué invertir en Miami? Pues como nos dice Greg, Miami es una ciudad la más popular en el mercado de los bienes raíces y probablemente el mercado del que más se habla en todo el mundo. Acá les comparto, acabado de salir hoy 24 de octubre, el reporte Miami Report del tercer trimestre de este año, donde Greg nos expone, como él bien sabe hacerlo, con toda la sabiduría del mundo, este reporte maravilloso de por qué sí es saludable seguir invirtiendo en bienes raíces, sobre todo en Miami. Acá te dejo el reporte, espero que lo disfrutes y cualquier información que necesites en referencia a bienes raíces en la Florida, pues acá estoy. Soy Yusimi Martín, tu asesora inmobiliaria de confianza.
Good morning, everyone. It's Craig Studnicky from ISG World and Related ISG, getting ready to present the Q3 Miami report today on October 24th. Can you believe it's October 24th? 2 months from the big holiday. Lots of folks often ask me what keeps us so committed to producing this Miami report every quarter. I've been thinking about it, and it's really two reasons. One has to do with Miami, and the other one has to do with real estate. Real estate. It's still the most highly valued asset in all of the world. It's currently listed at around $634 trillion. That's the valuation of all real estate worldwide. Way ahead of stocks, way ahead of bonds. Forget crypto. It's still real estate. In Miami, I still think it's the most popular real estate market in the entire US and probably the most talked about market in the world. With all that said, let's get going on Q3. And I'd like to start with a little bit of a history thing. This little cover shows the original Miami report. You might call it mid-Q3 of 2009. It's 15 years old. The cover says perception versus reality. The New York media picked on Miami real estate. They said in CNN particularly, there were over 21,000 condos for sale, and they said there was a 10-year supply. Well, we counted. The actual number was 11,502, which is half of what CNN said. That wasn't 10 years, it was 2 years. I realized then that you really do have to take a really, really hard look at what the media says about Miami, particularly from New York, and really scrutinize the difference between the headline and the story, because they're often different. They were different then, it's different now. I'm dealing with some perception issues because I've been asked a lot of questions from a lot of realtors, from a lot of investors, developers, architects about market conditions here in Miami in the last few months. And I can tell there's a perception problem. So if you give me a little bit of time this morning, we're going to clear up the perception and give you a brand new reality. Here we go. Let's start with the headlines. We're going to start with the New York Post. As I said, there's a difference in journalism. There's a difference between the headline and the copy and the story. They usually link up. Doesn't happen all the time, and particularly in these two stories. The New York Post in September writes a story about how the condo market could teeter on collapse amid soaring costs and safety rules. They're suggesting that Florida condominium prices are dropping. They're half right. They're half wrong. But that headline can scare an awful lot of people who are considering buying a home, whether it's a condominium or a house, or maybe making an investment in commercial real estate in South Florida, when they see a headline like that, and that headline is misleading. The Wall Street Journal, a couple of weeks ago, writes a story about the Great Migration of Florida is coming undone. And I'm very flattered that they referenced the ISG Miami report from the end of June, Q2. It's always flattering when a publication like the Wall Street Journal references your material to make part of their argument. But in this particular story, the headline did not match the story. It makes it sound like the migration, the population gains here in South Florida have somehow come undone, to use their very word. Totally untrue. Let me show you. Let's get on with it. Some of you have been asking about transactions. Well, I think transactions have slowed down, Craig. You know, mortgage rates are really, really high. And I don't think that the population gains are what they've been in 2023 or 2022. I think real estate transactions have slowed down. I've been getting that a lot. So I did a little comparison for you. Here's a perception versus reality difference. Look at Q3 of 2022, just 2 years ago. We did a little over 22,000 transactions. That's houses and condos combined. Those are sales. That happened in Q3 2 years ago. Q3 last year, it was 20,000, a little less than 2022. This year, you're knocking on 23,500. Yeah, you did more than 1,500 transactions than you did in 22, which was considered a really good year. Perception, reality. It's not a slow year. People keep moving to South Florida, and they keep buying existing inventory, and most of it is happening in MLS. Let's go to MLS and talk about single-family homes. We continue to get some relief in inventory here, and it's really, really good news. You'll see later in the presentation that the magic of the salesmanship of Mayor Francis Suarez of Miami has caused even more companies to relocate to all of South Florida, Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. Single-family homes are up. We had about 8,500 for sale in Q3 of last year. Now we're up to almost 13,800. We need that inventory. Prices are getting a little high. We divided these into 3 categories. We always do, just to keep it simple. There's the A, the B, and the C. The A house, it's like 15 years old. It's contemporary in design, and it's on the water, usually on or really near the water. And the average price, list price today of those is $27 million. Yeah, it's a little pricey. The B house, it's exactly like the A in terms of age and design. It's just not on the water. And the average price here is, list price is $10 million. And then there's everything else that I call the C houses. Not near the water, not necessarily contemporary design, not necessarily new. And they're now averaging 1.2 million. Yeah, they've gone up a little bit, but the price range of the C house is between 500,000 and 1.5 million, which is the affordable price range for most of the people who are moving here with all of these Fortune 400, Fortune 500 companies that are relocating to South Florida. We need the inventory. There is something, though, that, oh, look at this next slide. This shows what a great investment single-family homes continue to be. Residential real estate, I said at the outset of this presentation, is the highest valuation of any asset class in the world. Single-family houses in South Florida are the epitome of that. So far this year, the average single-family home is appreciated in value by 6%. My guess is that's where it will wind up by the end of the year. But that's the thing about single-family houses. Somewhere between 6, sometimes 10, sometimes as much as 20% annual appreciations consistently in the last 30 years. But let's take a look at this next slide. I think you're about to see a paradigm shift, a little bit of a shift in the buying preferences of the buyers. Remember, the Miami report is not just a trend study. It's also a giant mirror that reflects the buying interest of the buyers. They take us where they want to go. If you look at Q3 study, of the houses, we sold roughly 9,900 houses in Q3 of 2022. We're down by almost 1,000 this year. In Q3 of 2024, it's 9,000. It's 1,000 less. Now look at the condos. We sold around 12,600 condos in Q3 of 2022. We've sold almost 2,000 more condos in Q3 of this year than we did in Q3 of 2022. And forget 2023, a lot more than even last year. So you're seeing a little bit of a shift. 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was all about single-family homes because it was all about social distancing. And the easiest way to social distance was with a house. Not as easy in a condo. There's lobbies, there's elevators. I know you understand. But things have shifted. Cost of owning a home has gone way up, mostly because of insurance costs. And when you get close to the water, the insurance costs go even higher and the prices just continue to go north. Condos. Social distancing fears are over. I get to live in a condo kind of near the water for a whole lot less than it costs to live in a single-family home, not just in terms of the purchase price, but also the carrying costs, the condo fees, as well as the insurance costs, which are usually included in the condo fee. That's where we're starting to see the shift in the buying activity. Expect much more of it next year. Now let's go to condos. Here we go with the New York Post. The New York Post is queuing in on this very issue. 3 years ago, we all know what happened in Surfside with Champlain Towers. It's my opinion that the state of Florida overreacted to it with this new milestone law, but they did, and it's the law. And here's what it basically means. It means that this year, throughout 2024, all condominium properties, regardless of where it is in Florida, Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, Tampa, Naples, Palm Beach, Florida, If you're 30 years or older, you had to hire a structural engineer to examine the structural components of every condominium. And that's been going on. Some of the early results are in. We're hearing condominium associations assessing individual unit owners in some of these buildings that are over 30 years old as high as $350,000 per unit. Whoa, that's the highest I've heard. Some of the more reasonable ones are somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 per unit. Most of the results are clearly not in because these reports aren't due until December 31st. But the tea leaves are in. We're seeing what's happening. Condominium associations have kicked the can down the road for way too long. The state of Florida is not letting you get away with that anymore. All condominium association budgets must have a reserve for replacement. The 30-year-old buildings don't have the cash, so they're assessing the unit owners with what we call a special assessment. It's had a negative effect on the valuation of those condos, which I'm about to show you. This year, in MLS land, let me give you a broader perspective. In the multiple listing land here in South Florida, we normally have around 22,000 condos for sale at any given time. That's Miami, Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, and Palm Beach County combined, 22,000. And that means that the playing field is kind of level. It's not a buyer's market or a seller's market. It's relatively equal. Well, about a year ago, we were down to well below 9,000 units in the Tri-County area, which makes very much for a seller's market, which is very much concerning. It appears as if we're getting close to normal again. It appears, because you've got over 20,000 units listed in MLS, so it appears as if we might have a fair fight on our hands. It's not a buyer's market, it's not a seller's market, the playing field's level. But that's another perception versus reality argument. Because the truth is, 85% of everything that's currently in MLS is over 30 years of age. And it is making a lot of buyers and every mortgage lender nervous to the point where they don't even want to bust a move. Buyers don't want to put in an offer, lenders don't want to lend because of the great unknown attached to these special assessments. It is, in fact, a big unknown. We'll know everything about this 6 months from now, 9 months from now, because not all the condominium associations are going to have their reports ready on January 1. Common sense says so. But throughout next year, we'll know. It's my hope that the devaluation of these condominiums that are 30 years of age or older will have hit their low point, because not every one of these condominium associations will have big special assessments. Many of them have been beautifully maintained, but the unknown has caused this. That means the reciprocal is true. 15% of all condos currently listed in MLS are less than 30 years old. That's around 3,000 units, Tri-County, Dade County, Broward County, Palm Beach County combined. 3,000 units, that's a seller's market. Perception versus reality. I thought we were out of the woods. No, you're not. Because there's 3,000 sellers that control condominium inventory that mortgage lenders will lend on and most buyers want to make a bid on in South Florida. Let's take a quick look at the stuff that's less than 10 years old. We broke it out, we aged it. We always do. We do it for you. Condos that are less than 10 years old, condos that are 10 to 30 years old, and condos that are 30 years plus. These are the condos that are less than 10 years old, and you can see you have 680 for sale. And this year, we sold 1,712. We added 1,444. We're selling around 315 of these every month. So with 680 remaining for sale, you got about 3 to 6 months of inventory, and they will sell. And when they sell, they will get replaced with another 600 plus. And what does that do to pricing? This is pretty substantial. You're up 9% this year, the whole year. If this was an annual appreciation rate, this would be almost stunning. It would be impressive. This is 9 months. My guess is that by the end of December, this is going to hit double digits, somewhere around 11 to 12%, because whether they're from Boston or Buenos Aires, whether they're from Los Angeles or Sao Paulo, they're reading about the condos that are subject to these special assessments that are 30 years and older. They don't want any part of it. They're asking the realtors to take me to something younger, anything less than 30 years old. Hell, anything less than 30 years old. If it's less than 10 years old, look at the depreciation rate on those units. People keep coming, and we'll get to the demand in a second. And they're going to continue to cause the valuation of those younger condos to go up. These are the condos that are 10 to 30 years old, still under 30. There's 2,333 for sale. We sold over 10,000 of them this year. We added another 4,600. Sold 10, added 4,600. Hell, that's only 2 to 4 months of inventory at the current pace we're selling. Like the stuff that's less than 10 years old, up 9%. So all condos less than 30 years old are up 9%. The older stuff is down. We're going to show you that in a second. That's where the New York Post is half right. It's where the New York Post is half wrong. Let's go to the stuff that's 30 years old. I'm going to show you where they're half right. There are now 17,000 of those for sale in the Tri-County area. We only sold 2,600 of those this year. We added almost 4,000. You got over 2 years of supply here. These are selling very slowly, very, very slowly. And the cause and effect of the unknown, of the special assessments, has caused the valuation of these condos to be down minus 21% so far this year through September. It's my hope that we've hit the bottom of this. Maybe it falls to 22, 23. But I do have a pretty strong feeling that we are getting very, very close to the bottom of that curve. You might call it the perigee of the curve, because not all of these condos are in such bad shape. Again, we'll know a lot more about that sometime next year. So here is a recap of all of that condo inventory, because I just don't want you getting lost with all of these facts. The truth is that we have a lot of demand and we don't have a lot of supply. What this shows is that 85% of those 20,000 units are over 30 years of age. And folks, I'm saving you a lot of time and a lot of brain power. Nobody wants that right now. What they want are the condos that are less than 30 years old. And if you add those two columns up, you've got 3,000 units. That is not nearly enough inventory. What's very interesting, though, about all of that, especially when you look at the 14,000 condo sales that took place this year, just the condo sales, 88% of those condos are priced between $500,000 and $1.5 million. That's per the MLS. That's just summarizing all the data. 88%. And what's interesting even further about that, if that's the most popular price point in condo land that's selling, particularly stuff that's less than 30 years old, I just want to put a lot of my focus of attention if I'm a realtor. How many of those do we have for sale out of the 3,000 units that are in MLS? 87. 87 condos are priced between $500,000 and $1.5 million in the entire Tri-County area. And where do you hear this? They're all in Miami. Not one in Broward County, not one in Palm Beach County. Scarcity, serious scarcity. And those are the condos that are going this way in terms of price. Because they're so young, there's no special assessment that you possibly attach to it. The condominium associations are fully funded, particularly the line item called reserves. Interesting information, isn't it? New construction, let's go there. So since 2020, there are now 113 buildings, 22,800 units being developed in South Florida, in this particular case, from Coconut Grove to the south, Pompano to the north. 11,300 of those are what I call traditional condos or condominiums with rental restrictions. 11,500 are short-term rentals with no rental restrictions. We now have more short-term rentals being developed in South Florida than we have traditional condos. The only thing I can say about that, I sure wish it was the other way around. Because when I get to the demand section, you're going to see all of these people that are continuing to move here, and they need to live, and they want to live in a traditional condo. You can't live year-round in a short-term rental, but you can in a traditional condo. We need to build more of them. Let me give you an example. This is one of my favorite slides. I have a colleague of mine that works with me here at ISG named Esther Jimenez, and I refer to this as my Esther Jimenez slide. I think I repeat this slide in almost every Miami report, but it does give good perspective. In the 2000s, we built almost 59,000 condos in Miami, Miami Beach, and Fort Lauderdale, way too many, in 275 buildings. They all eventually got sold and everybody lived happily ever after, but wait, that's way too many. In the last cycle, we built just under 20,000, 19,465 from 2012 to 2020. Folks, I've looked at this data with my colleague Athena Rossano, and here's what we've concluded. That's what you need to build every 10 years to accommodate the population gains of South Florida. Forget second home buyers, forget investors. Add that to this. What we need is 19 to 20,000 traditional condos built every 10 years just to accommodate the population gains of South Florida. In this cycle, it's half of that. If you look at the current cycle in 79 buildings, there's 11,300 traditional condos being developed. But if you look up above, only 21 of those buildings, or 4,152 units, are actually under construction, are actually going vertical. The other 7,000 plus are waiting for interest rates to drop even more. So you only have 4,100 under construction when you need almost 20,000. And most of these 4,100 aren't going to be finished until 2028, maybe 2029, maybe 2030. What do we do between now? This is October of 2024. What do we do between now and then to accommodate the population gains of South Florida? All roads lead us right back to those 3,000 units in multiple listing in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. There's your inventory. And folks, that's scarcity. Now let's flip the coin and go to demand. Let's deal with the Wall Street Journal, who thinks the migration to South Florida has somehow stalled. Oh yeah, let's see. I'm going to give you a 10-year perspective. We've been studying the population gains of Florida forever, for 30 years, 40 years, but I'm going to just give you 10 years. In the last 10 years, we've averaged 963 people in the state of Florida every single day. This year, through July, the U.S. Census Bureau has us at 983 people per day. Please allow me to round up to 1,000. Because last year, the state of Florida averaged 1,000 people per day. Right now, you're at 983 per day. So here we go again with another perception versus reality thing. You're trending this exact same direction as you did a year ago when everyone was complaining about car traffic. No, they keep coming. And by the way, more or less 40 to 50% of that daily number, of that 1,000 a day, is South Florida, is what you call Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County combined. No, we're still getting people. They keep coming. A lot of them are coming from these corporations. Now, here's why I give a big shout out to Mayor Francis Suarez. He's the best combination of a salesman and mayor we've ever had. At the end of Q2, I was sharing with all of you that he's recruited 204 companies to come to South Florida, mostly Fortune 400 and 500 companies. That 204 number is now up to 219. It keeps growing. And what's not in this number, because it's a big number, are all of these little satellite companies that are relocating with the 219 companies to service the 219 companies. I know, think about an aircraft carrier in the Navy. It doesn't just go by itself. There's destroyers and submarines and helicopters all over that aircraft carrier protecting that aircraft carrier. When Citadel relocates from Chicago to Miami, they just don't come with their company. There's 50, 60 companies that service Citadel, and they're joining the party. Now add that to the 219 that are coming. You understand the strength and the resiliency of the demand curve? Well, let me add to your belief. This was about a year ago. Bloomberg writes a story about the GDP, the domestic gross profit of the United States, and they broke it out in 4 quadrants: Northeast, Southeast, Northwest, Southwest. Look what they concluded. If you don't mind, I'm going to read this. The numbers tell an interesting story. For the first time ever, the 6 fastest growing states in the South, Florida, Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee, it's all part of the Southeast. Texas and Florida, well, obviously Florida, Texas is also included part of the Southeast, are contributing more to the national GDP than the Northeast. That Washington, New York, Boston corridor, for the first time ever. We're talking over 100 years. The switch happened during the pandemic. Now, here's where Bloomberg, in my opinion, spikes the football and shows no sign of reverting. What Bloomberg is basically telling us is that the future business environment, the engine that's going to drive the U.S. economy, has shifted from the Northeast to the Southeast without any signs of reverting. Add Bloomberg to the 219 companies that are already here together with the satellite companies. Add that to the 985, I call it 1,000 people a day, that continue to relocate to South Florida. I wouldn't have any concerns about the demand curve. No, you've had a lot of multifamilies getting developed since 2020. Actually, it's close to 40,000 units here in South Florida. A lot of people who moved to South Florida moved into one of those rental communities. Half of those rental units, so half of those 40,000 units have already been delivered. And a lot of the people that moved here from all parts of the world moved into one of those for a very good common sense reason. I think if I got recruited by some real estate developer to move to, say, I don't know, San Francisco, I have no idea what neighborhood I would want to live in San Francisco. So you know what? I would rent for a year or two until I figure that out. Same's got to be true for Miami. Guy comes here from New Jersey or California or Chicago. What's the difference between Coconut Grove and Aventura? Not an unfair question. They don't know Miami. So they rent for a year or two. Well, that year or two is almost finished. And these people are not renters. These people who are relocating to South Florida, working with these Fortune 400, these Fortune 500 companies, they're really homeowners. And they've got the cash. And now the mortgage rates are poised to go south. My forecast is next year, a lot of those tenants are going to be out there looking at those 3,000 units for sale, because it's time to bust a move away from renting and start building or rebuilding my my net worth. And the easiest way to do it is with the most valuable asset class in the world, real estate. Here's another thing that gives a little bit of strength to your belief in the future of Florida. It's the U.S. House of Representatives. We have an election here in a week, and it will reshape a little bit of the House of Representatives, just a little bit, because this is really more of a 10-year thing. The House of Representatives is Congress. There's 435 members. It's all determined based on the total population of the state. The most populated state in the country is still California. Number 2 is still Texas. And number 3 is still Florida. It might be a chance that Florida takes over Texas in my real estate career. I don't think California, but there's a chance that we go from close to 25 million up to 30 million people, because that's where Texas is. But when you look at the amount of representatives we have, California has 52 congressmen out of 435, making a lot of noise in Washington, D.C. for California. Texas has 38 members. Florida has 28. All these highways and byways that you see getting expanded in South Florida, or all over Florida with federal funding, you can thank those congressmen that are walking the hallways of Washington, D.C., and they're making the case that Florida is the second fastest growing state in the country. We have got to upgrade the infrastructure to accommodate this future growth, particularly since the Southeast now is the mother of the GDP of the U.S. Oh, you're going to get a lot of federal help for the rest of your lives, because that's the way the Constitution was drafted, to make it more fair for the states that are the most popular, the most populous, and the fastest growing. The 2020 forecast, as I come to an end of Q3, I love Barbara Corcoran. You see her on Shark Tank. I've had the chance to meet her. She speaks her mind, and she's making it pretty clear that once interest rates drop close to 6%, 5.9%, prices are going to go up, things are going to get kind of juicy. Take a listen to this video, this quick interview from CNBC.
I can't explain the rates going up or down. That's not my bailiwick. But what I can explain is if rates go down just another percentage point, that's what I'm hoping for by year end, prices are going to go through the roof. And the reason for that
would be around 6%, get to that level.
Because everyone will come out and buy. There are probably 10 buyers on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to come down that are actually active in the market. So everybody's going to charge the market. And so if you wait for interest rates to come down by another point, I don't think you'll gain. I think you'll wind up paying more, because I wouldn't be surprised if real estate went up by another 8 or 10% if interest rates come down another full point. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a magic number that makes people get all juicy about.
Yeah.
And it just has to slide down there for everybody to say, let's get out there and take advantage of it.
Well, this is matched with the agenda of Jerome Powell, chairman of the U.S. Fed. 1 year ago, 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 7.6%. 7.6%. Today, it's 6.6%. It is down 1% from a year ago. Jerome Powell lowered the federal fund rate by 50 basis points a few weeks ago. There are 2 more meetings scheduled between now and the end of the year, one in November, actually the day after the general election for the president, and one in December, where he's announced that you can fully expect another couple of rate cuts. As the rates continue to get cut by the Federal Reserve, you can absolutely assume that will influence mortgage rates. You went from 7.6 to 6.6 in 1 year. Barbara Corcoran is saying that gets to 6, all hell is going to break loose. This is 2025. Please get ready, because this is happening. Real estate is oftentimes subject to the laws of physics. You know, what expands eventually contracts. Well, with these high mortgage rates, Florida could be capable of doing so many more transactions. As Florida starts to see rates lower, expect a contraction especially in your own heads, to expand. I promise you it's coming. So, as we finish, let me go back to the headlines. Experts, this is from the New York Post. Experts warn the Florida condo market could continue on collapse. If you age the inventory, now you have a better understanding. If the inventory is over 30 years old, partially true. If the inventory is less than 30 years old, totally not true. And then there's the Wall Street Journal. Again, the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for always referencing the ISG Miami report. The fact that it's gotten your respect and admiration means a lot to me and everybody that works at ISG and related ISG. But the great Florida migration is not coming undone, ladies and gentlemen, from the Wall Street Journal. They keep coming from all 4 corners of the world. And I'm going to tell you, this year I've seen a remarkable rebound from the South American markets, from Mexico City down to Buenos Aires, including the Caribbean. We're talking about Miami. How popular is Miami? Well, I'd like to end this particular Q3 with Mayor Francis Suarez. He became mayor in 2017. His term ends next year. Listen to what he's done for real estate valuations from the day he took office in 2017 until now.
A lot of things that I get to do as mayor that are more fun than this. I was just explaining that when I became mayor in 2017, the total value of all properties in Miami was $40 billion. Today, 7 years later, it's almost $100 billion.
There is no other city in the United States that can claim that 2.5% time increase in the real estate valuations of any other city except Miami. I'm telling you, we are selling real estate in the most popular city in the United States and perhaps the most talked about city in the world. It is my hope on behalf of all of my colleagues at ISG and related ISG that we clear up any perception problems attached to 2023 and gave you a little bit of a new sense of reality simply based on the facts. I get to see all of you again in early January when we do a whole recap of what happened in 2024 here in South Florida. Until then, I wish you all always the same. Lots of success. I guess in this case, happy Thanksgiving, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. I'll see you in early January. Good luck for the rest of the year. Bye-bye.